Hi everybody, Elisa here with another Vera Bradley bag of the day. Today, I wanted to do a viewer request video. I've actually gotten a number of requests to do this kind of a video, but the most recent request came just a little while ago from Sandy. So she just sort of reminded me that people had been requesting this in the past, and she had asked, had I ever thought of doing my top patterns kind of video. And I did want to do that because it just seems kind of like a fun thing to do, and but I never got around to it, even though I was posting other videos, because I was feeling like it requires a little bit more thought, and I didn't just want to do it, loosey-goosey. I wanted to think about the pattern. So anyway, when she asked me about it recently, sort of got me thinking about it again, and I did have a little bit of time today because I'm waiting for a job and it didn't come. Yay! Time off for 2 seconds. So I thought I would do it. I was really going to I was trying very hard to narrow it down to 10. Also because I felt like it's a sort of tribute to David Letterman, who I miss very much. And he always had his top 10 lists, and I grew up watching him, and Johnny Carson too. I mean, no one tops Johnny Carson. But I think after Johnny, David Letterman was really the best at doing that late night stuff, and he did the top 10 list, and so I was thinking, well, I should do a top 10 list, and there's just no way I couldn't fit it down to 10. So this is my top 14. It's my top 10 list, but it's really 14. But we'll pretend that it's 10. And I bet you this will even be a part 1 kind of video, because I could see myself doing all sorts of top 10 different categories. It's definitely a fun thing to do. So I will try to be super quick. I know I have a tendency to go on, but so it might be a little bit of a longer video. I'm sorry about that. But we'll get right to it. Number 14 is Floral Nightingale. Oh, and before I start, I just did want to mention some of the patterns. If they have trim, I'm trying to show both versions. If they have some patterns have more than one version of trim, and if I have items that show the different trims, I'll show both. So that's why some of the items will have more than one style shown. So I'm trying to sort of be comprehensive about the pattern. So this is Floral Nightingale, number 14. This was fall 2011. This bag style does come with 2 different versions of trim depending on the style of the bag. This first style is the Laura. I do have a video on this particular bag. I like the Laura. It sort of has this elastic gather up top, and so it makes it a little bit feminine. I'm not going to go into too much of the bag features because it's more about the pattern. It's just, for me, this is about the birds. I mean, I know people know my videos. I'm always talking about how I love critters. I have a soft spot for critters, and I especially love birds. I've owned birds. I've had 4 birds over my life, and just have dogs now who I'm checking on. But I did have birds for a while because when growing up, my dad was allergic to anything with hair, so we just had birds. But I just love those birds, and I love the sort of hippie flower child kind of look of these flowers. And this sort of soft rendering, this very hand-drawn look to the rendering. It just makes the whole thing very appealing, very feminine, but not too girly and sweet. It's still a very bold graphic pattern, and I think it holds up well over time because of that. It's not dated looking. It's still modern looking. You see the birds there, and you can see one of the sort of dragonfly insects there. There's more than one insect. There's another one. There's more than one style of insect on this bag, and I tend not to like insects, except for ladybugs and dragonflies and butterflies. But, like people saw my video where I showed my garden picnic on the go. Not a big fan of the giant ants or the beetles, the scarabs. Not a huge fan. Too icky. Another very cute insect. I like the green in this too. It's sort of this pea soup kind of green. It's an unusual green. It's not a green you would maybe see often in a pattern. So I like that. It's very, very nice. Very, like I said, hand-drawn look to it. I find appealing. And I like the navy blue background. It's a little faded here. I do have another version of this, another style of this, because I want to show this other version of the trim. This is the thinner, so I didn't really talk about the trim here. This is the trim at the bottom, has the birds in it, along with some flowers, but, and more insects. You can see them there. So if you don't have good bird placement around the body of your bag, but it's a style that makes use of that trim, you know, you're probably going to get some good birds still in the trim. So that's kind of nice. This is a quick draw here. And this makes use of a thinner band of trim, which doesn't have birds in it. It's just the flowers. Yeah, very hippie child. So that appeals to me. I guess the time I grew up, the 60s and 70s. It just gives you a nice look at the pattern. This is the quick draw. It's basically like a big bucket with a drawstring feature closure up top. And you can wear it crossbody. I have some videos on this bag. Love this one. This particular one, this is my favorite of all my quick draws, the one in Floral Nightingale. So that was number 14, Fall 2011, Floral Nightingale. Number 13, I've talked about number 13 in a recent video. It's just like a bag tornado here. It's bags everywhere. So I won't talk about it too much because I can put links to the other videos, but this is Tavern on the Green, Fall 1990. And this is the Patty, this style. And this bag is all about the unicorns and the trim for me. I'm not sure, but I think I've only seen styles in this pattern that have a wide band of trim. I don't know if there's a smaller, thinner band of trim. I've only seen the wide band of trim, and it's gorgeous. I mean, you know, you can't beat all those animals. The squirrel, the stag, the rooster. But beyond that, I mean, look at the scroll work of the vines and surrounding the animals, even on the body of the bag where there's rabbits and squirrels and birds. So you get the rabbit there as a squirrel. Let's see if I can find a good bird. Oh, there's a good bird on the front. There are a couple of different birds in this pattern, but there's one of them. Kind of look like woodpeckers. But what's nice about the scrolling sort of vine-like foliage is that it makes a nice line for your eye to follow. It leads your eye through the pattern well. And you can sort of especially see that in the trim. You know, this sort of the leaves just sort of lead your eye. It's a nice line, sort of tell your eye where to go. Keep your eye moving around the pattern. So I like that very much. And I feel like this holds up, this pattern. It's not old-fashioned looking because gorgeous colors, gorgeous flower work. I mean, just look at the flowers. I mean, you just can't really beat that. It's beautiful. So that's my number 13, Tavern on the Green, Fall 1990. Number 12. More critters. It's Sure Thing, and this is spring. I had to write these dates down. There was no way I was going to remember it. This is spring 2019. Again, you know, for me, this pattern, when first reaction, this was all about seahorses. I saw the seahorses, and I was like, I got to get me some of that. It took me a while, and I got all my Sure Thing stuff on eBay because I wanted to pick pattern placement, and the stores around me didn't have a lot of options when the pattern came out. They didn't always have items with good pattern placement, so it took me a while. This is the first thing I got, and then I proceeded in very short order to get the larger version of the Viera. This is a small Viera because I just needed more of it. There's not a thing I don't like about this. I love the turtle. I mean, there's the fish, and of course the seahorse. But beyond that, it's nice to get all this foliage, the sea foliage, the sea life, the coral there. I mean, that piece of coral is stunning. That sort of fan coral. We got more coral, different coral in the back, that real vivid orange coral color against the blue coral of the turtle. It's just, you can't really, beat that. And a nice lining for the seashells. This would be a nice throw, as I've been saying recently, that I wish they would make some of their lining fabrics into throws. I think this would be a nice one. Very subtle, very monotone, but different shell designs. And of course, that starfish there. And I like this basically looks like you're looking at a fish tank in a way, or you're looking at, an underwater scene. Whereas I think some of the more recent beachy patterns that have the seahorses and other things are a little too structured for me. I like this, that is not structured. So that was number 12. Sure Thing, Spring 2019. Okay, 11. Now we go from sort of a summery feel, if I can find it, to something wintry. Oh, yes, right here. This is Winter Palace. I don't know the year. This is a Dillard's exclusive. This is a triple zip hipster. I do have a video on this particular item. I just think this is an elegant pattern. I love the use of the dotted line work, to create leaf shapes. I think it, like I said in that video about this, just does make this look like a very wintry scene. It sort of reminds you of frost and twinkling lights, and so it's a well-named pattern, Winter Palace. And I think it's interesting too, the color palette here, as I talked about. I like it because it's very minimalist. It's with the exception of a little bit of green thrown in there, it's just your primary colors, red, yellow, blue. Done very delicately. I think that's interesting. And of course you get the critters in here, so, hard to resist the deer and the rabbit, and there's a cardinal, and various butterflies. A couple of different color combinations for the butterflies. You can see the cardinal there. There's one blue butterfly there, and a red and yellow one there. And I just want to show this. Recently got this Zip ID case with the bunny there. But the reason I'm showing it is because I do have a couple of other things in this pattern, but none of them have they all have a solid black nylon lining. This is the only thing I have that shows the lining that had the pattern. So even that lining is very nice. So that was 11. Number 11, Winter Palace. Dillard's exclusive. Number 10. So now it's like we're doing really a top 10 list. So number 10, another pattern I don't know the date for. This is Mickey Meets Birdie. I think that the current Disney patterns, the more recent Disney patterns, are fun, they're colorful, but I think they're a little young looking, and they're young in concept because they are designed with this sort of a background pattern, and then the Disney figures just sort of look like they're plunked down on top of the pattern. Whereas older patterns in the Disney line, they almost look like they're more like visual puzzles. The shapes of the Disney, it's usually the Mickey head but sometimes it's a silhouette of the whole body of Mickey or Minnie, and they're worked into the pattern, the design of the pattern. They're not this element that can just be lifted off. They're an integral part of the pattern, and they're often hard to spot, so you kind of have to look for them. And that's why I love these older Disney patterns. And this one is my favorite. I just think it's so elegant. Again, it's Mickey meets Birdie. I just think that this very simple color, scheme with its almost mono, it's like monotone, black and white, and just a little bit of hot pink touches. I just think, you could just, it's almost like a good neutral. I mean, it really works with a lot. And I just think it's very strong and graphic. These big leaves and this sweet sort of chubby birds. And you can see the silhouettes, of the Mickey head. I love these feathers, the feather and the beak of the bird and the trim up there, the butterfly up in the trim. And you get a little bit of it's like a little ladybug, stylized ladybug there. This butterfly. There's another version of the ladybug, only in white. This is, I don't know what the official name of this tote is, but it has a loop and a toggle there. No zip top, it's just open. And the lining is nice too. And it's got 6 slip pockets inside that are made from quilted fabric, so they're nice and sturdy, and they have some body to them, and they give the bag some structure. So the bag, even empty, just holds its shape real nice. You can see even on the lining, you can see the silhouettes of the Mickey head in that hot pink color. This bag has a removable cardboard base. There's a sleeve that's sort of tacked down in there, and you can slip the base out. So just really, probably my favorite Disney pattern. Although there are a number of good old ones, but this one is the top for me. Mickey meets Birdie. Don't know the year, but this was not my number 10 pattern. So number 9. Where is it? This is what happens when you have too much stuff. Oh, here it is, right at my feet. I think this should probably be on anybody's, this would probably be on most people's top 10 list. This is Java Blue, and this, I'm not sure if it still is, I guess there's a chance it still is, but it certainly was at one point the Vera Bradley's best-selling pattern. I don't know if that statistic still holds. And my feelings about this pattern have changed. This was spring 2006, Java Blue. Initially, I think I resisted this pattern because I didn't like the color combination. The brown seemed a little poopy to me. But in addition, it reminded me of my college school colors, which I never was crazy about. And I think I had sort of an aversion to it because of that. But it's just hard to resist this pattern. It's so complex. It's so luscious. I mean, it really looks like it's influenced by textile design in India and Asian textiles. And the colors are just, when I started to really look more at the various blue tones, I just fell in love, especially with this sort of deep teal color, aqua kind of color. You just look at all the detail work in there. And this is the Tic-Tac Tote, which I did want to talk more about this bag in a different video for other reasons. But the Tic-Tac Tote makes use of a thinner band of trim to create that grid-like design that's giving the bag its name. but it's just, you know, it's just a really, just a rich pattern, a very complex. I feel like with the Tic-Tac totes, some patterns, you know, look really lend themselves well to this style, and other patterns just look like a hot mess in this style because of the use of the trim sort of cutting across the bag. There's no pockets or anything on the outside of this bag, so you can really get a good look. Like I said, I talk more about this bag, I think, in a separate video. It's just a great pattern, I feel like, and complex. Like, I feel like the patterns today maybe are a little bit more simplistic, which is odd. You would think it would go in the other direction, sort of always advancing and becoming more complex, but the patterns sometimes seem to be almost regressing, like they're getting a little bit more simplistic. And just to show the wider band of trim in this pattern, this is a Morgan. I do have some videos, not on this particular Morgan, but on the Morgan because I do love it. And makes use of that wide band of trim, which also seems very, you know, Middle Eastern or almost European too, with these almost look like, you know, rose stained glass windows, rose windows. Those medallions, very, you know, Middle Eastern. So very, very nice pattern. Java Blue, number 9 pick, 2006. Number 8, it's a completely different vein, is Cat's Meow, and I am surprised to find this on my list, but I just am drawn to it. I think it's so well done. Love this background color. I love this gray. It really serves as just the perfect background for the pinks and the orange tones to really pop. And I just love these cats. I mean, they're just so nicely done. I'm so pleased that I didn't talk myself out of getting this. This was fall 2019, and as most people know, it was a very limited edition, and you know, it's very frustrating now if you're trying to find pieces on eBay. People are really price gouging for the most part. It's a shame. But occasionally, with some effort, you can, you know, find some regular retailers online still have a few pieces here and there. So I'm very pleased that I didn't talk myself out of getting this when I was in the store, and I did have a coupon at the time, so it was easier to sell myself on it. But I never regretted getting this one, and I use it a lot. I was surprised at myself. I really do like this one a lot, even though I'm a dog person. I am an animal person. You can see the fish bowl there, the cat with the fish bowl, very cute. I think whoever came up with the idea really did capture the cats well, the personality of the cats well, and what cats do and how they move. So nicely done. And should show real quick the lining. This is for anyone who's interested. This is how I store my stuff as much as I can. I nest stuff, although I'm getting to the point where I have to store some stuff flat, which, you know, sort of kills me to have to do. But I'm running out of space. But for the most part, as much as I can, I try to nest stuff so stuff keeps its shape. But you know, this is just such a cute lining with the birds and the bird cages. And they're not all the same, you know. It's not all the same bird, and there are cages with no bird. The cat that got the canary. There's one right there. This was a lining that I really think would do nicely as a playful throw. You know, whimsical, kind of fun. A little bit of a sense of humor. You gotta have a sense of humor. Not everything has to be paisleys and flowers. So that was 8. Number 8, Cat's Meow, Fall 2019 limited edition. Number 7, I don't have to talk about too long, but because I did recently show this in a video, and I can put links as much as I can. I'll try to put links to related videos. This is Garden Dream Performance Twill. This is Fall 2019. And I've just fallen in love with this style, and I do love this pattern. I think it's elegant. I really do. And I love that. Again, more dotted line work here, forming leaves. Here, it's deep teal. And what's nice about that, and the way it's used here, is that since the pattern elements, the flower elements aren't so densely positioned together, there is a lot of negative space, but yet there's still visual interest in that negative space because of the dotted line work in the leaves. And so you don't ever feel like, oh God, I didn't get good pattern placement, because there's always something there, visual interest. I do feel like this is a very sophisticated pattern, more so than some of the cotton patterns. Very rich looking, very expensive looking. That's a little expensive. So that was my number 7, Fall 2019 Garden Dream. Number 6. 6 is Petite Vines. This is a lighten up fabric. Fall 2018. This is the medium cosmetic. This is the main lighten up thing that I'll buy. I know now they're doing reactive. So I could say the same thing about the reactive line that I would say about the lighten up line, which is that I was never really crazy about that many of the styles in that line. So it kind of kept me in check. But so I don't have a lot in this. I just had this in a hanging travel organizer, which I couldn't find in my closet. Otherwise, I would have pulled it out because it gives you a look at more of the pattern. It's a bigger item, but this is what I could easily find. I just love the denseness of this pattern, that there's all these flowers crammed together and there's not a lot of empty negative space. Love that. Just makes the pattern look more luscious. And these colors are so rich. And any kind of pattern that's got like thistle in it, I tend to be drawn to. There's something about that. I love that shape. It's very graphic. And it's an interesting shape to me. Almost look a little bit like strawberries because they're this nice sort of vermilion color. The TV's a little loud all of a sudden. And it's not, not just the thistle there. I mean, look at that. This flower right here with the two smaller flowers overlapping it. It's that attention to detail that's so great about this pattern. And look at this. Gorgeous, like magenta on red. So I really like this pattern a lot. My favorite lighten up pattern. And the lighten up fabric is so nice because it has this sort of sheen to it that really makes the colors look rich. I feel like more so than the reactive. I'm sure that has something to do with the fact that what they're making the reactive stuff out of. They're recycling plastic bottles, and that's great. I mean, I'm all for that, but it does make me a little sad. I do like this fabric a little bit better. So that was 6, Petite Vines, Fall 2018. Okay, so now I'm at 5. 5 is Quilt Floral, which was a 2019 QuiltCon limited edition pattern, and it was the first QuiltCon pattern. And as I talk about usually with lavender, I have a fondness for lavender because it was my mom's favorite color, and this bag is just all lavender. And I just love it's very feminine, but the sort of crazy patchwork quilt motif makes it not super girly, like if it were just like a typical flower pattern. And so I like that. And I also like the fact that this pattern seems to sort of hark back to the trim. It's sort of the use of the trim is sort of honoring the historical use of the trim in this company. There's another bit of it there. That's pretty background color, sort of this deep purple eggplant kind of color. So, I mean, this, it was very hard to find. I actually didn't see it listed. I mean, it wasn't listed. The seller contacted me because she knew I was interested and she had one to sell. I mean, I have never been looking for this since it came out, and I didn't get it, and then it sold out, super fast. And you just never see it on resale sites. You never see it. So I'm sure this is the only thing I'll ever have in this. She was selling her triple zip hipster too, but that's not a style that I like. I'm starting to get into it out of desperation, but I've since found other crossbody styles that I like much more. So it's not a draw for me anymore. It's just this is the Viera Tote, and just your regular Viera Tote. So it's the larger one. It's gigantic. Anyway, so that was number 5. Quilt Floral, 2009 QuiltCon pattern. Also nice, I should mention the trim is a denim. That's nice. I mean, that's something I normally would have thought I would gravitate to. Like when you do a custom bag, that's an option. You can use a denim trim, and I didn't on my custom bag, and I wouldn't probably. But I think it works really well. It looks very nice here on these QuiltCon bags, because it's also on the 2020 QuiltCon bag as well, that denim trim. It looks great. Works very well with the QuiltCon patterns, I think. Okay, number 4. Ooh. And number 4 has a couple of different versions. So it is Foxwood Menagerie, and which, initially was just the lining from the Foxwood pattern. And so this is the first color I think we kind of were all sort of used to seeing it in. This is the color the lining is in the Foxwood items. And this is the pouch that came with the Foxwood bright crossbody. So I just thought I'd pull it out to show. So it's the purple lining with the critters on there in different colors. And you get the chipmunk, and you get the field mouse, and you get the rabbit and the fox and birds. There's 2 different birds there. So, I mean, it's just, I've talked about this pattern quite a bit, and I just love that sharp, crisp rendering of the sort of the ground, the fabric on the ground. And I just think that the softness then of the animals really makes the animals pop. It's not just the color that makes the animals pop, it's the way they're rendered in contrast to the way that the sharp foliage is rendered. That softness of the animals makes such a contrast that they pop real nice. So this is, sort of that purple, your basic purple. And the back of the backing on the coconut sorbet quilt, which is the Foxwood quilt that is the star pattern, is also this a takeoff on this a version of this, but without the critters. I don't know why they left out the critters. Just frustrates me endlessly. Why do they do that? But also sort of purple, slightly different purple, but it's that same foliage everywhere, and it's just great. But then you get other items with other colors of that of this Foxwood Menagerie. So this is, what was this, blackberry wine, I think, this velvet color. And the lining in here, again, is the Foxwood Menagerie. But it's this red, this sort of wine kind of color. Still with the critters, you can see the critters, but you can see that they don't pop they don't pop in the same way, because there isn't that as much of a contrast in color. Here the critters are sort of warm in color, and so the cool purple is a nice contrast. Here everything is sort of warm. The critters are warm tones, and the faux background foliage is this wine color. It's all very warm, so that there isn't as much pop. It's still very beautiful. That was one of the main reasons I was tempted by this item in a sale. And then, of course, there's Foxwood Menagerie Blue, which is in the custom fabric options. And this was a custom tote that I did. I have a video on this tote. No, I did this tote a long time. I mean, already it's feeling like a while ago. It was probably the end of 2019 that I did this tote. When I was sort of, well, I still feel like I am kind of sort of deep in grief. I was, you know, really freshly grieving the loss of my dog Duke, and I got custom embroidery inside honoring him, and this is the fabric I picked, which is Foxwood Menagerie Blue. I wish this were an exterior, you know, on all bag styles. It's just a shame to me that it's so limited, you know, because you really got to pay an arm and a leg in the custom section to get anything, you know, with this. And I got this before they raised the prices. They've just recently raised the prices, so they're even more expensive now than when I got this. And I was already feeling like, oh, this is kind of steep. But I was so in grief that, you know, I just didn't care. So you can see that the color's more of a teal on this background that is sort of, it's not quite navy. It's not quite dark enough to be navy, but it's not light enough to be royal blue. And I'm not a fan of royal blue at all. It's a little too raw for me, like paint straight out of the tube. But this is a nice in between those two. And again, you see the critters there. It's always risky, right, when you order something with animals, or even if it's not animals, even if it's just other elements in the pattern that you want nice pattern placement. It's risky to do a custom bag. They're expensive. I assume you can't return them. Certainly mine was embroidered on the inside, so I can't return it. And, you know, if you don't get good placement, you know, you're shit out of luck. So it's quite a gamble, which would make me hesitate to do it again because, again, you know, like I would have loved a fox like smack in the middle there, and I didn't get one there. I mean, I got lots of foxes elsewhere, so, you know, it's not the end of the world, but it's just those little things. You feel like you're paying a lot for this. You would think they're putting it together for you somewhat by hand. Maybe they could make an effort to give you those elements because they know that's what people are going for. So, you know, the inside here is the version of Foxwood that's also in the custom section and has, you know, the same critters that you would see in the regular Foxwood pattern, but yet I would never try, it's too risky, I would never try to get them on a custom bag on the outside. You know, I would never order this fabric because I would just be afraid I would never get them where I want them, and it's a waste of money to me. But it's a nice, slightly different color palette on that lining fabric than the Foxwood that you see, you know, on the regular styles. So that was my number 4, Foxwood Menagerie Blue. This particular one is blue. And then number 3 is, and that Foxwood Menagerie, if I didn't say it, that's winter 2019. This is another one that I don't know the date for. It's another Dillard's exclusive. This is Dragon Fruit Floral. I don't have a Dillard's by me, so I just ordered this from looking at pictures on the website, and I fell in love with it. I love this background, this deep, rich gray color. It's not quite the same as the cat's Meow, but it is in that family. It's like that same kind of concept to me, of a deep gray that has a bluish kind of cast to it. And I think these warmer colors, the red and the orange, really pop well against it. And that has something to do with the relationship between blue and orange on the color wheel, because they are complementary colors, meaning they fall opposite each other on the color wheel. And colors that fall opposite each other on the color wheel sort of, well, they complement each other. Obviously, that's where the name comes from, but they really flatter each other when they're used in combination. They make each other look more vivid. So I love in addition to that, I love the sort of Asian, again, another Asian like influence here. I love all the swirling line work. I especially love this leaf. This combination of the red and the orange together is just so rich, and I really like it. I feel like orange is a color that sometimes people are a little afraid of, and it's a little underappreciated and underused. But when it's done well, it is great, and it's luscious, and it's done well here. This is a small Vera, so it's not a bag that I really am crazy about. But it seems like whenever Dillard's does an exclusive with Vera Bradley, they only get the small Vera. They don't get the regular size Viera Tote. And I wanted something with the wide band of trim. So I got this. I love the flowers on this trim. They sort of remind me of like cookies with hard icing on them. That's what they remind me of. Which of course means I'm now getting hungry. After I finish this video, I'll go have some cookies. So yeah, Viera Tote's a little small for me, but you know, worth it to get the trim. And just want to show another piece here because there is a thin version of this trim as well. This is the triple zip hipster, and that has that thinner band of trim. This thinner band of trim is also on the 100, and I do have this pattern in the 100, so I'll have to do a video on that. Yeah, I have some videos on the 100s, but I haven't done one in a while, so it doesn't hurt to do another one. But I like that band, the thinner band of trim too. Very sweet. And again, there's the orange and the red leaf combo there. So normally I would have been bummed that this label was over this flower, but it didn't matter because I was all about this. And these pieces sort of, I have an affection for these pieces also because I ordered them when Duke was dying, and I was just trying to make myself feel better. Then I started getting all these alerts about, you know, shipping and tracking your package, and everything was always like delayed or out of stock, and I went back and forth. It just seemed like they couldn't make up their mind whether they had these items or not, and I was in no frame of mind to focus on it. I was like, whatever happens, happens. I can't even think about it. And so I just assumed that the order would be canceled and I would never get it, and I just put it out of my mind. And then one day a package showed up. So it was kind of a nice little moment of happiness for my mind, and, you know, while I was dealing with something so terrible. This is the back, again, with those orange and red flowers. So I was just very pleased with the pattern placement that I got on all these things that came at this very bad time in my life, which actually feels like it's still going on. Like it doesn't really feel like it's gotten any easier. I miss him every day. I just wanted to show the lining a little bit because it's nice. You get these sort of almost look like stylized pansy flowers, very repetitive, but mixed in there are these little fireflies. So that's nice. And this is that heavier cotton, more cotton-like feel. It's polyester, but that feel, that more cotton-like feel, not the nylon feel. And that, for me, that makes all the difference with the Glenna, because if people know my other videos, know I don't like the Glenna for various reasons, and that was one main reason. But now that they've changed the lining, I'm sort of, the Glenna is starting to grow on me a little bit more. Uh-oh. Could be a problem. Okay, so number 2. Again, that was Dragon Fruit Floral. I hope I said that at the beginning. It was Dragon Fruit Floral. That was my number 3. Number 2 is Blue Rhapsody. I mean, I just can't even with this pattern. It's so gorgeous. And this is Fall 2009. I have 2 items here because it does have 2 different trim versions of the trim. This is the Morgan. I do have a video on this particular bag. I mean, you just can't beat this pattern with a stick. I mean, it is so luscious, and it is so crammed, filled with designs, you know. I mean, there's not a lot of empty negative space. I just love that. Love that rich feeling. It really makes you feel like you're getting your money's worth design-wise. And, great color. This is an analogous color scheme, meaning that all the colors fall in an arc next to each other on the color wheel. And so they are harmonious. It's a very harmonious um, color scheme. There's nothing that really pops out, except here maybe the purple's a little bit, but even still, you can get that arc where it's going, green, blue, and into the violet on the color wheel. So I do like this much better than Symphony and Hue, the sister pattern, because Symphony and Hue just seems very noisy. It's a loud, noisy looking pattern, and that's because of the palette. It's not an analogous color scheme. This is an analogous color scheme. Just can't get over this pattern. Just so complex, really complex. Great, very Middle Eastern looking mosaic, almost looks like mosaic work in the band. This is obviously the wider band of trim. And here on the reversible tote, which I think is probably my absolute favorite bag style. Just love this bag style, and I do have a video on this. But this makes use of a little bit of thinner band of trim, which you can compare. Not exactly the same, but related. So that was my number 2, Blue Rhapsody Fall 2009. And number 1, drum roll, is, and probably always will be, Yellow Bird. It's sort of my default favorite pattern. When anyone asks me my favorite pattern, this is always the first one that comes to mind. Then I always sort of hesitate and think, well, maybe there's something I like a little bit better. But there's just something about the yellow birds in this that I just can't get past. And, you see all that scroll work within the bird shape. Again, very Middle Eastern looking to me. Love the tail, the swirling tail. And you can see all the scroll work in the flowers. Gray, sort of like gray, almost looks like pencil. A little bit of yellow. And this is a nice yellow. This is a rich, sunny yellow. And I've talked about this pattern in other videos. So I have a bunch of things in this in this pattern. Again, this is a Tic-Tac Tote, like the Java Blue tote. And yeah, this one was not new with tags. The Java Blue one that I got was new with tags. This one was not. This is, I would say, very good use condition, although the base was broken. So I have to replace the base, and I haven't done that yet. But I was looking for a good bird placement. I wanted birds, and I didn't want them cut off awkwardly. And here's one on the back. And that one in the center on the front. It's very hard to even find a bag with one. There is a small version of the Tic-Tac Tote as well. I prefer the large version. Something about the proportion of the width of the trim to the size of the bag on the small, I'm not crazy about it. I think this is better proportion. The elements are better proportion. But it's very hard to find good bird placement in this because of the style with the trim interrupting everything and, creating those 6 sections. And this is a thinner version of the trim with this pattern. And sort of very Middle Eastern looking, medieval looking. And the lining is this great yellow background color with these sort of stylized flowers. Not a lot of interior organization, just these hanging pockets, one zip and the other one some slip pockets on these hanging flaps. And just to show the wider version of the trim on this pattern. So if you're looking at, and a lot of patterns do make use of this wider style trim, and so if you're not getting good bird placement on the body of the bag, maybe, you probably get a decent bird or two on the trim, which is what's great about this trim, these big birds. You can see the signature, there too. This is a Lindsay. I would imagine you could wear this crossbody, but I have a feeling the strap would be a little short for me. I just tend to use this as a shoulder bag because when you have the strap at its shortest, it sits up nice and high. It's a nice strap too. It's got some softness to it, although it's not quilted. You got the bird there, bird on the back. This is all about the birds for me, and if I spend a lot of time, I take my time looking for a yellow bird, because if it doesn't have the good birds, it's not worth it to me. Even though I do like this, the other elements in the pattern, the flowers, very pretty and unusual. For me, it's about the birds. So that was my number one, Yellow Bird, Spring 2008. So there you have it, oh my God, what a mess. Putting all this away is going to be really fun. But that was it, my top 10/14 top patterns. Part one, I'm sure, because I could see wanting to do another one with more patterns because there's so many great patterns. But these are really my favorites. So anyway, I hope people found that enjoyable, and I know it's a little bit longer, so thanks so much for watching, and hopefully see you next time on Vera